We were telling you about gigantic outdoor raves happening across the region almost every weekend. Sometimes they ended in confrontations with the police after residents complained of deafening music in the small hours of the morning. This summer, all has been quiet. Too quiet, say party organisers who accuse the police of using new legislation to try to stamp out the craze altogether. Alison Holt reports.
I thoroughly enjoyed myself this week.
A police officer monitors pirate radio stations to get details of acid house parties being held this weekend. 15 are planned, but most will be stopped. The pay party unit based at Gravesend in Kent has been so successful in clamping down on illegal parties, 80% of those planned now come to nothing. It was set up last October at a time when the craze for acid house parties was at its height. 40 or more different events were taking place in the region each weekend. Convoys of cars would travel for several hours to reach the venue. Some events, such as this one in Surrey, attended by around 10,000 people, ended in violence.
Within 2 or 3 weeks, it became very apparent that there was a strong criminal element, in particular trafficking of drugs, that was motivating these parties.
The pay party unit, which is made up of officers from across the region, has built up detailed knowledge of the main organisers, where and how they advertise their parties. Some events are even being held abroad because there are less restrictions there. Officers will also pose as partygoers to get the details they need.
Hello, mate. You got any raves on this weekend? I'm coming up from Essex.
We contact the local police and we tell them what we know about the party, whether we know the organisers, the ticket outlets, the RV points, and we leave it to them to take whatever action they deem necessary to stop the party going ahead.
At the beginning of the year, it was basically very easy to put a party on, because the police did not know what was happening. It took them totally unawares, and they were not ready for it. As the year went on, they got a lot better on their information gathering, and they knew where the parties were going to be before the people.
Nearly 3,000 people packed into this sports ground at Barking in Essex last Saturday to dance through the night. The difference this time was the whole event was legal. It's a new breed of party. Its organisers, Raindance, had the public entertainment's licence and the police approval they needed.
We drew up a set of guidelines with the help, obviously, of the pay party unit, the district councillors, environmental health officers. Something that would work for both us and them. Large gatherings, 6 o'clock, things running all night. I don't think they'll die. I think the people want them. And hopefully now we're in a position where they can be done.
We will see. Joining us now to discuss it is Chief Superintendent Ken Tappenden from the Pay Party Unit, and in the studio with me, Mark Zed from Rave Magazine and an avid partygoer. Why have there been so few legal parties this year?
Well, I think a lot of it is down to the way the police acted at the back end of last year and also through the start of this year. There will be parties, there is a supply, there is a demand, there will be parties, they won't stop. There's no reason why it's going to go back on.
There were hundreds last year. Every weekend they were going all over the southeast.
Where
have they all gone?
There's still parties going on every week. They're just in smaller venues. It's been driven back underground by the police.
Do you think that they're victimising you? Do you feel that they're treating you unfairly?
Oh yeah, they've gone. I mean, they have now sort of. They're a little bit more lenient than what they were at the back end of last year, but they are definitely victimised. I mean, they've gone a long way to destroying what was a very peaceful youth culture.
Well, Ken Tappenden, how do you respond to the allegation that you're something of a party pooper?
Well, quite frankly, all we do is to work with the agencies to set safety standards. And I think that for the young people to go to the parties with the dangers that surrounded them throughout last year was nowhere near the standards that the mothers and fathers, the public generally, would wish to see.
Isn't it the case that most policemen actually would like to see acid house parties stamped out altogether, that it's too much trouble apart from anything else?
Well, in relation to acid parties, I think what we've got to do is work within a legal framework. And you've just heard the organisers say they had the party last week, and we were party to those arrangements. Now, if every organiser was to work to common standards to ensure safety for the persons who attended, then you wouldn't need police to actually go to the venues themselves.
Mark said, isn't it actually the case that last year the illegal parties were organised by people who were making a huge amount of money for very little outlay, and now they've got to come up to safety standards. It's just not the money in it for them anymore.
I don't think it was so much the money. I mean, there was a lot of dodgy promoters that started up last year, obviously thinking they could make a quick buck. But I think if the police would have sort of worked together with the promoters last year, I think you'd have found that they could have sorted out who the dodgy ones were and who the real good ones were, and everything could have worked hand in hand. I mean, there was no reason for some of the parties to have been stopped. All the requirements were made.
What about the effect on large private parties? How do the police tell the difference between a large private party and an acid house party?
For some unknown reason, I don't know why, but the police have all of a sudden started stopping parties in people's houses just because there's dance music being played. I mean, a party where I was in South Ockenden, they actually blocked off both ends of the road, knocked on the door at 2 in the morning and said that they were coming in through the windows, the doors, and they was going to confiscate the equipment. I mean, there's no justification for that. There was no charge on the door. There was no drink involved, and certainly no drugs.
Ken Tappenden, how do you respond to that, that the police are actually interrupting quite legitimate private parties?
Well, in relation to private parties in houses, there has been a development in that, and clearly we need to take account of the problems, again, the safety in a home. I can give you but one example in my locality where the basement of a house, a small 3-bedroom house, had 240 people taken out of it, and there was one entrance that they could go into and out of. Now, if that is safe in terms of fire, in terms of people being present, in terms of any occurrence, that doesn't fit our safety standards. And let's look at it another way. The police do not set the standards. The district authorities and the fire service do. We are the law enforcers, and in terms of noise pollution, people do not wish to be